Happy post-food present day, everybody. This is the Atheist Chef, and now that Christmas is over and I'm still got some off days, I'm going to be working on a video. Or two, or three, who knows. This video is basically going to talk about the ambiguity of creationists. If you've been keeping up with me at all, I've done some videos with Thick Shades, a Christian creationist. I've done two discussions with him, and then recently I've mostly just been talking with him in the comment section and exchanging and debating and whatnot. However, I just can't get past these creationistic tendencies. Now there's quite a few things that they tend to fall back on, and I want to go into a little bit greater detail to prepare those of you like myself that have to interact with them, and sometimes just find yourself just scratching your head and just saying, well, okay, sure. So, let's begin. The problem that I and other atheists have with creationists is, well, it's not science. I mean, science is testable, it's falsifiable, it's not ambiguous. You can make predictions from it. It is something that actually works. Now, what you'll find with many of the creationist arguments is that it tends to be into circular reasoning, using one unproven claim to kind of back up the other, or resorts to well, we don't know this. This could have happened. This could be but with no proof behind it. So I come across this a lot, and so I thought maybe I would help you guys out and kind of help maybe identify, what these people are saying and how to best respond to it, or at least how to best think about what's actually being said here. So let's begin. Creationists often say, well, we don't know what the pre-flood climate was. Well, I'm going to ignore that whole fact that we don't have any proof for a flood, and the idea that you're using an unsupported claim to try and bolster another unsupported claim. I'm going to forget about that and just say, yeah, we actually can pretty much figure out how the climate has changed. We have paleoclimatology, dendroclimatology, scleroclimatology. We study the ice caps, and we can understand how the way that volcanic ash found between layers of ice caps, and we can figure out what happened. We can actually understand where the climate was so this idea that we don't know and we can't figure it out is stupid. Thing is, as creationists, you need to actually get some of your creationist buddies, use these tools, and try and find evidence for this climate. Oh wait, you haven't identified what it is. You haven't even really defined it, other than it's probably somewhere around 72 degrees, and the seasons were a little off, not too hot for the summer and too cold for the winter. But so far there is no evidence through those three fields to show that is the case. So you're going to have to keep digging or do something special, because so far all the evidence that we can use to show what the climate was does nothing to bolster your claims about a pre-flood climate. Then creationists will say something to the effect of, but we don't understand what the atmosphere was before. And I said, well, very similar to the climatology, we actually can understand what the atmosphere was, and we've dated it all the way back to basically the formation of the Earth. And for example, we know that at the beginning of the atmosphere, there was really no oxygen. There was mostly hydrogen and helium and nitrogen and other things. But it wasn't until much later that we actually started developing oxygen. And we can verify this by noting that there's certain elements in our rock layer. So, way at the deeper that you go, the older it is. We start seeing rocks, chilling in here, and there's certain elements that are there. But that are related to a lack of oxygen. But then as we go higher up, we start seeing different elements, and that actually have a relation to oxygen in aerobic processes. So it's small little things like that. So, and this is a very layman description of what that was, but there's much better. But this, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm just saying that we know how we can do this. We can know how we can find the atmosphere and what it was and how it's changed. So once again, creationists have to now propose an atmosphere, a certain atmosphere, to fit the things that they say. Oh, I love it. Is they said, well, the atmosphere allowed the people to be smarter and the creatures to be bigger, and now so now since the flood, it's dumber animals. I mean, a bit smaller animals and dumber humans. I haven't even yet to see them understand like what concentration of what element could actually or what anything could change the atmosphere to make people smarter and animals smaller. That to me is my personal favorite of what the fuck central. But it all is surrounded by ambiguity because they can't promote what it is, so they can't make a positive claim as to what is actually doing it. Now, actually, I heard Nephilim Free, which if you haven't heard of him, well, he's basically a walking, talking Answers in Genesis website. He said that it was extra oxygen. There's a different oxygen content. Now, oxygen poisoning, things like that. I don't know. I barely understand that myself. But I haven't heard any creationists verify those claims either. So there we go. Then you have the creationists saying that we don't know what the animals were like before the flood. So once again, we have an unsubstantiated claim to bolster an unsubstantiated claim. That's working out well for them so far. But the thing is, we have fossils, and we have DNA, and we can track their history, and we can figure out, their ancestors. But when you're a creationist, you have to ignore all that. You have to claim that everything that they found is either, came right from after the flood, or that these species are not really their ancestors. They have to completely ignore all of this evidence and then introduce a species or a variation of a species that we have yet to find. We have not found one animal that fits the creationist, that makes the creationist happy of before the flood. Now that to me should kind of stand out. Where are all of these animals? Where are these root animals? The base, that no one them brought in the ark. What species was they? What were they? What was their origins? What would make their diet so different that it would be so drastically different from 1 year on the flood, right before the flood, they were eating certain things, and then a year later, eating something completely different. Please explain that to me, or how that even possibly makes sense. But again, very ambiguous. We don't know what their diets could have been. We don't know what things that they were adapted to. We don't know. But scientists do know, and we can study that. We can look at the paleontology, and we can look at the migratory patterns, and we can look at, we know what we can find, and we know how to find what these animals were and what they ate and what they were around. It's so obvious to us, but they have to ignore that to be able to bolster their claims, or their ambiguous claims. Not even a positive claim, not even one that can be tested or falsified or anything. It's just something that just throws it up in the air so we can no longer talk about it. But again, you don't see them finding any evidence for it. It's just kind of a, well, who knows? Well, you don't know, so you have to leave it open to the possibility that it's going to happen. Well, no, we don't. We have no reason to. I don't have to be open to the idea that aliens came and popped down and, or whatever. Or there's I can make up shit and just say, well, you don't know because there was a flood. It doesn't matter. I can't prove it. You can't prove it. Why should I believe you? Why should I not believe what scientists have said, and then believe you instead? Now, here's the thing about the ambiguity that creationism depends on. It's much like the presuppositional argument. Basically, it's not designed to answer questions. It's designed to shut mouths. See, if creationists, make it very ambiguous and don't really define anything and give exact, exact atmospheric conditions or give exact climates or exact just anything, then scientists can't disprove it. It's just designed to leave it open and not let science progress any further to actually tear it apart and pick it apart. And so what you'll find is, since science has come so far and actually, answered every claim that certain creationists have said so far, all these really false claims, really badly described claims, and and poor science and all this stuff. So they've had to move the goalposts. They keep moving and keep moving and keep moving and keep moving, and finally it's so vague that science can't say anything about it because creationists have not really giving us, anything to work with, anything to actually get our hands on and study and tell why they're wrong. So with that ambiguity, they're no longer trying to reach the scientists. They are trying to reach the layman, because the laymen don't know this much about science. So you can probably convince the layman, with that. It's a great tactic. However, it's completely dishonest. And when all else fails, and you've backed them into the corner, and you've shown them how it's not physically possible for something to happen, like the animals on Noah's Ark, they're going to resort to, leaning back, ripping open their jacket, and you see the big bomb, and you got the handle right here, and across the top it says, God did it. And then they press the button, and that's the end of the conversation. They can't go any further. And it's a shame, because it's just a nuke that just ends it all. There's no further discourse, there's no further discussion, there's no further thinking or questioning or understanding that they could be wrong. It's God did it. It's a good tactic, but it's also dishonest. Creationists tend to fall in the same traps as their presuppositionalist brothers and sisters do. See, creationists should be trying to prove the impossibility of the contrary. Basically, they should be trying to show how science exclusively proves that there was a giant global flood and a pre-flood environment and a pre-flood atmosphere that allowed for giant animals and really smart humans that, an oxygen content was able to do that. But it doesn't. And since science fails them, they have to resort to ambiguity. And so now we have to deal with it. So again, the four main points that you're going to come across are: we don't know the pre-flood climate, we don't know the pre-flood atmosphere, we don't know the animals, what they were like before the flood, and 4, God did it. It's not science. It's ambiguity, special pleading, moving the goalposts, all these things. Just, it's not science. This is the Atheist Chef signing off. Thank you so much. Peace.